Hi, everyone. So I'm Gabriella. Welcome. So good to be here with you. So this is where I will be downloading the 3 questions you need to ask yourself before you go on your next date. And so I don't know about you, but for me, my worst date, hey, Jennifer, lovely to see you. Are you in Maine right now, my fellow Mainer? Hi, hi. You know I was born in Maine, right? And actually, the story that I'm going to tell you has to do with Maine. So the worst date of my life consisted of me as a young woman going out with some girlfriends and meeting some men in Saco, Maine. And here I was meeting some men. We hang out for the evening, like drinking beers and that sort of a thing. And then one man asked me for my number. So I give him my number. We set up a time for him to come pick me up. We talk on the phone. We set up a time for him to come pick me up at my house in South Portland, Maine, in his white pickup truck. And however it unfolds, we end up back at his house. And then what happened is he held me captive in his basement cellar for 3 days. And now this is an extreme experience that I'm talking about, but there were red flags that at that point I was so young and so unconscious, I didn't even know what to look for. But just to illustrate, there are these things that happen to us where we inadvertently, nobody taught us how to date. Nobody taught us what to look for, let alone as a very young woman and even as a grown woman in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 60s, 70s. Like very few people actually learned what to look for on a date. Hey, Deanna, lovely to see you here. So here I am, I'm being held captive in his place. I think it was in Saco, Maine, and we had basements there, so they're cellars, like where it was like downstairs. And I'm in his basement for 3 days in this, locked in there. And what I remember having was like a box of Twinkies. He gave me the box of food was literally a box of Twinkies. I just remember eating lots of Twinkies, and I think there was a case of like Marlboro 100 cigarettes, and I smoked at the time. And my way out was, so if you imagine a basement, it's underground, and yet there were these really small rectangular windows. Jennifer, you'll know what I'm talking about because from you're in Maine. So it's like there are these very small basement windows that are rectangular and narrow. So it's not like a big proper window. Here in California, we don't have basements, too many earthquakes. And so he left to go do something. I don't know what he went to do. And I'd been eyeing this one window thinking that, oh my God, that's my escape route. And so by the grace of God, he went out to do something, and I was able to smash the window, climb up on the washing machine, and like wriggle through into safety and ran to like the local, I think it was like a Big Apple gas station or something like that, to then, make a collect call to get help. So I say this just simply to illustrate that while very few of us have been held captive on bad dates, a lot of us have known bad dates, right? Like it doesn't matter what our history was. It doesn't really matter some of the things, that whatever our life circumstances were, very, very few of us actually were taught what to look for. So I want to just fast forward ahead to something that I was sharing about, when I was talking with some of you about doing this live stream, because I had posted in my Facebook group here, Extraordinary Love Relationship Coaching for Conscious Women. As you know, last week I posted a question just asking you to tell me about your last date. And so many of you were like, oh, it was creepy. Oh, it was horrible. Oh, it was like bad. Or, oh, I was stood up. Like Mary McNally, you were talking about how you were stood up. Julie, you were talking about how it was creepy. So it's like we all have these experiences with bad dates. And even, fast forward, the story that I told happened a long time ago, and there's been a lot of life that's happened and a lot of maturity that's developed inside of me. And so I no longer put myself in positions of danger. But even in our sophisticated sense of self, even in our sophisticated dating process, we often override red flags, or we don't know what to look for. And so what I want to share with you today are the 3 things what to look for. And so using another example of when I was single, when I was dating with the intention of meeting my mate, I was actively going on a lot of dates. I had just moved to LA, and I had just gone through a really painful breakup, and I was really clear that I wanted to meet my partner, right? Like I wanted to meet my partner. And so I was just saying yes to dates all over the place. So my friend Veronica and I were going to see a movie at the Landmark Pico Westfield Center. And so we're going to this movie, and we're walking in to get our tickets. And then there's this very super hunky, super hot dude, stranger, really dreamy, like 6'4", kind of like these cascading brown curls, really buff, really chiseled. He had like a navy blue t-shirt and jeans and like this black leather jacket. And he was sitting on the floor working on his computer. And that did register. I'm like, that's an interesting place to sit, but whatever. So we started talking to him somehow. And through that conversation, he asked me out. And because I was single, I was like, sure, I'll go out with you. And gave him my number. We texted and set up a place to meet, maybe the next week or something like that. So I go on this date, and it's like from walking in, something just doesn't feel right. And as we sit down, he starts to disclose, oh, I forgot my wallet. Sorry, you're going to have to pay. So again, inside, I'm like, that's really kind of weird, but all right, I blew it off. And then he starts telling me all of these stories about how he's super into S&M. Right? Like he's super into S&M, and he's talking about his glorified, reputation where women know him as a sex god and refer to him as a sex god, all of this stuff. And inside I'm shrinking. Like I am like, oh my gosh, so uncomfortable, so uncomfortable. Can't wait to get me out of here. But I didn't think I could leave. Like I was still operating from a lot of conditioning, like most women, where we're more concerned about hurting someone else's feelings instead of actually standing up for ourselves and taking care of ourselves. So I stayed. Not only did I stay, but I paid and walked away just feeling totally slimed, really uncomfortable. And then, because I wasn't being clear, I continued to receive just a deluge of texts from him, thinking that we have this connection and la la la. And I didn't know at the time how to just be honest, and I didn't know how to take care of myself in this situation. So what I want to share with you today is the things to look for before you go on a date that chances are nobody taught you. So the questions to ask yourself, number one, am I in fantasy? Am I running from some level of fantasy thinking, oh, there could be so much potential here, or wouldn't it be an amazing story? Or like a sense of hopeful, like if it could only be this easy and maybe this is the way that I meet my soulmate. Is there like just hot chemistry? So number one, am I in fantasy? So for me, because he was hot, because I found him attractive, I didn't even think twice to ask further. So that's to check in further. So question number one, is there some part of me that's like hopeful that there's some potential here that, may feel like a bit of a reach, but not sure. So that's question number one. Question number two, based on who I am and where I'm going, are we aligned? Are we aligned? Do I have sufficient enough information from him that tells me that we are walking a similar life path? And if you're unsure, get more information first. So for me, using this example with this date, I immediately dismissed the fact that I thought it was peculiar that he was sitting on the floor in the corner of a mall working on a laptop, like on the floor, right? Plugged into the power strip on the floor in the mall on his laptop. So for me, that was sufficient information for me telling me that something just seemed a little peculiar. Like that's great, but for me, for like the quality and caliber of man that I was really committed to calling in for myself, like something for me had a sense that maybe we were off. And I could have asked for a phone call before I just gave him my number, texted with a place to meet, and gone on the date. So it's question number two. Based on who I am and where am I going, do I have sufficient enough information that says, are we aligned? And if not, how can I get more information before I spend my time on the date? And then number three, if I'm being really honest with myself, is there a red flag? Is there a red flag? And for me, my red flag in the story that I told is because he fulfilled my fantasy of hotness, like he was super hot, I let that one slide. I let the red flag slide where I didn't even consider like asking if we were aligned. I let the red flag slide where I was like, oh, that's kind of weird that he's like sitting on the floor in a mall, like working, like instead of an office or at a table or something like that. And so here's what the takeaway is for you. Before you go on a date, right? Before you go on a date, we have all of these factors that are playing. We have all of these factors that are playing. Everything from, where we're vetting ourselves, where we might have some insecurities around ourselves, having to do with like, am I good enough? Am I appealing enough? Like, are there any good men? And in a way, sometimes we feel really like desperate to be chosen. So sometimes there's insecurity at play that might have us say yes before it's good for us to say yes. Maybe we wonder if we're giving off signals, like if we keep calling in these kind of like peculiar men or men that aren't a fit, maybe there's a part of us that wonders if we're giving off signals, but doesn't really know what we're maybe saying yes to that we're not aware of based on our signals or what we're tolerating in our body language that has men flock to us that aren't really good for us. So a lot of us, we have some confusion, right? Like there's all this confusion. We've been on these bad dates. There's insecurity. There's like, is there something wrong with me or there's something wrong with him? We get super picky and critical with men. And so underneath this, because so few of us were taught how to date, especially if we are dating with the intention of meeting our life partner, our soulmate, it's so important to stop, slow down, check out these 3 questions. Again, am I in fantasy? Is there some level of hopeful potentiality that's had me say yes here without actually a grounded sense? Number 2, based on who I am and where we're going, do I sufficiently feel like I have enough information that tells me that I want to spend time with this person? If not, get more information. Number 3, if I were really honest with myself, is there a red flag? Just because he may be hot, just because there may be connection or chemistry, just because we haven't been on a date for a long time, that doesn't mean we want to override our red flag. So these are the 3 questions for you to ask yourself. I would love to hear how they work for you. And again, if we haven't met before, my name is Gabriella Taylor. Hey, Yana, lovely to have you here. So my name is Gabriella Taylor, and especially for you ladies here in my Extraordinary Love Relationship Coaching for Conscious Women Facebook group, it's so lovely to be hearing your dating stories in terms of how much better they're gonna get from you applying these 3 questions. So drop me a comment below letting me know how this worked for you or any questions that you have. And if you want more information as to how to really, really like deepen your dating experience and just even know like where, like I had a coaching session with a woman yesterday who was a recent grad from my Foundations of Extraordinary Love program. And she was talking about how she always felt like she had a bad picker. Like her picker was broken. Like the picker that picked men, it was always broken. And as a result of going through this program, basically what we're doing is resetting your picker. So if you're in this place where you're really committed to learning how to orient to men, your dating relationship, how you regard yourself and compose yourself on relationships, even to illustrate and find what your red flags are, what your values are that even tell you what you're aligned. We're going to be opening doors very soon if you get on my wait list now for the next October session of my short-term Foundations of Extraordinary Love program. So if you want to learn more, super happy to share more with you. And again, if you want to get on the wait list, doors open September 1st, and there's some really sweet pre-sale offers just for women on the wait list. And I will put the link in below, which is for foundationsofextraordinarylove.com. And with that, like I said, share in the comments, what's it like for you? What hasn't worked with your dates? And also I want to hear success stories after you've applied these 3 questions. All right, ladies, signing off. Goodbye. God bless. Let me know how it goes. And I will see you.